Here we go. Good morning, good day. I hope everybody's well, and I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday yesterday. Thank you for joining us. Today, our webinar will be for the HIK-Central control room. So just to inform you guys, the person that you guys are used to normally with the HIK-Central and the ProConnect was Robin. Robin is no longer with the company. He's found greener grass on the other side of the road. So, but we wish him all the luck and all the blessings to go with it. Today we have Ruhal. A lot of you guys will know him from our training center. He's our base trainer. I've got a lot of respect for this man. He's really good in what he does. So yeah, I would like to welcome him to our webinar, and he's going to be doing the webinar today for us regarding that. And then also just take note, guys, that tomorrow we have another webinar going. That's going to be our Tandem View PTZs. That's the new ones that's coming out, and a lot of new information regarding that. So just keep note of that as well. Ruhal, are you there?
Hi, Evan. Yes, I am.
There we go. Thank you very much. So the floor is yours. You should be able to share.
All right, let's have a look. Okay, there we go. I see my video. I can't share my video. I don't know if you want me to add my video to this.
Yeah, we can see your presentation, and also we can hear everything clearly.
All right, so we're going to keep the video off.
Yeah,
all right,
we can.
Okay, cool. Good morning, guys. I'm Ruhal. I'll be doing your control room introduction training today for HIK-Central. So I'm not going to bother you and bug you with too much information other than what we are here for today. All right, so let's quickly have a look and see what happens in the control room. Now, as far as I understand, you've already done the basic CCTV part of the HIK-Central, which included the installation and the basic configuration and so forth on both the web client and the control client. Although today we're going to look at what else happens in the control room. All right, so let's see. Today we're going to look at events and alarms, and that's, I think, the main function, the main feature of HIK-Central is how to handle events and alarms in the control room when monitoring different sites and systems. All right, secondly, we're going to look at the security control tasks. So setting up security control in the form of our alarm panels as well as radar. And then we're going to look at the smart walls. So the smart walls is how we display this much larger and bigger for the whole control room to see. Gives us more flexibility in the control room as well. And then a little bit, the last portion is the maintenance side. How we can do maintenance, even preventative maintenance or proactive maintenance. Let's rather call it that, proactive maintenance and so on. There's a lot of tools in HIK-Central that helps us with this. All right, let's quickly have a look at event and alarms. All right, so first of all, the function overview. If we look at the holistic control room, the first thing we mention is the event and alarms. So we're going to visualize them. Alarm notification. This could be in the form of an email. We can also populate it onto the smart wall, which I'll get to in a sec. Alarm linkage across devices, so we can have one device trigger another device to create alarm that way. Multiple events and alarms. We can basically link different events and alarms to pop up on maps and so forth. And then also we need to be able to search for those alarm records. And obviously we want to put filters on there so we don't say, all right, just show me all the logs. We want to look for specific logs. All right, the next step is the security control itself. So we need to be able to see real-time alarm detection. So we're going to have an alarm stack, something to the sort of that over there. Arming type settings for the alarms and so forth. And then also device status monitoring, which is basically falls, well, to me personally, falls more under the maintenance section where we can see the device statuses, online, offline recording, yes or no, that type of thing. But this device status monitoring here also includes under the security control, things like the access control. Are doors open? Are they closed? And those kind of things, all right. For the smart wall side, powerful decoding capability, we can look at the decoder today as well. How do we get the smart wall to physically work? Central management of the video wall, we're going to look at that part. How do we control the video wall itself? How do we set it up? What can we do with it? Display video on designated windows, so we can determine which camera or cameras or information we want to display on what type of monitor, which monitor. And then we also can schedule displays. Right, so if we're monitoring certain events every single day, let's say on a routine based between 5 and 6, we're watching closing times or closing doors and those kind of things, we can have a certain schedule set up with a certain number of cameras displayed automatically, so we don't have to call it up every single time. Then on the maintenance side, monitoring resource status and export, obviously reports if we want to. View exception details. So anything that went wrong, maybe whatever, see what information we can get from there. So typically a camera that's offline, click on the offline event and it'll show us exactly which camera is offline, which NVR is offline, what network issues we have and so forth. And then real-time notification. So we can also send notifications on that. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so we're going to look at a couple of different modules. First of all, the topology we're going to work with now and mainly today are things like the HIK-xample, the smart wall part, which we need the video wall decoder for. And then obviously different things for the security side. We can look at the alarm panels, the radars, IP speakers, switches, and that is obviously the decoder that we are using here. All right, so let's quickly have a look and see how we set this up. All right, so first part, as I mentioned, the event and alarm part. How do we create the events and alarms and how do we handle them? Right, so to receive alarm notifications, we need to obviously do a couple of things. We're going to start off with the web client. This is where we configure everything in HIK-xample. And obviously for that, you need to have certain rights permissions to be able to access those kind of things, to be able to configure it. All right, so we're going to add an event and alarm. Oh, and by the way, before we carry on, as per usual, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A box in your Zoom at any given time. Just pop a question there if you need to ask a question about something. And we've got guys in the background that can answer some questions. Otherwise, I'll also look at some answers or some questions after the training. Right. But for now, there's a big difference between events and alarms. All right, so we need to understand the differences between them. All right, so to quickly put it into perspective, alarms are the only things that are visible to the operator in real time. So we can only push alarms to an operator should they need to, let's say, action those kind of things. Events do not get pushed to an operator. Operator can go and search for events afterwards and so forth, but this is not an event that gets pushed to his screen for actioning and so on. Alarms are the only ones, right? So, but there's a small difference in the configuration between these two, which we'll show you a little bit later, right? So this we need to configure on the web client, which is the administrative type of interface of HIK-xample directly on the server. And then we can look at the real-time event alarm notifications and obviously searching of history records, which is very important. All right, so this we're going to do in the alarm center, which is basically the screen that the operator has got. And then the event and alarm search, we can do it both on the web and control clients. All right, so I'm talking about web clients and control clients. As I mentioned, you guys already joined the basic CCTV HIK-xample course previously, or webinar at least, earlier or before. And there they discussed the differences between a web client and control client. Now, just to quickly refresh your memory, web client is the server interface. It's a web browser-based interface. And then control client. If I talk about control client, this is more for the operator, where the operator receives alarms, checks video, playbacks, those kind of things, backups, those kind of things, right? So difference between web client and control client, right? So I've got many videos after each one of these sections telling you exactly what to do. I'm going to take you through the video of it. So let me just get rid of my laser pointer here so we can go into the video part. All right, so I'm going to play and pause the video as soon as I see something that's important that I want to just clarify. So then I might play and pause it quite a bit. All right, so let's start. All right, so first of all, we need to start in the web client, right? So web client is your browser. You're going to open up your browser, log into your HIK-xample side, and then we're going to go to the event and alarm setup over there. Here we're going to add different kinds of alarms. Now, just to quickly give you an idea again, we need to make sure what type of event or alarm we set up. Now, we set up both events and alarms in the same interface, the same menu over here. All right, it's just where we stop either determines it's an event or it's an alarm itself, right? So we need to carry on. We can see here there's many types of events or alarms to set up. So from here, we need to choose whether it's a camera alarm, is it alarm input, is it facial recognition, if it's access control based, vehicles, and there's a whole list of them, right? So you need to make sure that you choose the correct type of alarm or event that you want to set up. If you're not sure, search for it. All right, so there's a quick search to find whatever. So currently you're setting up a video tampering alarm. So if you didn't know that it belongs to a camera alarm or a ANPR or a whatever, you can type in video tampering and it will automatically select the correct source for you. From there, you choose the type because there might be more than one, and then you select the actual source itself. All right, so which physical camera or NVR it's coming from. Okay, then you scroll down a bit. So there's the name is automatically generated according to your selection that you made above that. Now, very important here, if we scroll down, the type of action, what do we want to do with this alarm, or what do we want this thing to do for us? So we need to add a linkage action. All right, so whenever this alarm, this video tampering alarm that we set up above is coming through, what do we want the system to do automatically for us? All right, so here's a whole list of, and it's called a linkage action. All right. So trigger a recording, so making sure that that camera or device records. Okay, and then also capturing and those kind of things. And now at this point, if we do not select alarm settings, if this stays off, then it only is an event. If we stop here, it's an event if we click on the add button below. Otherwise, if we want to trigger an alarm, have this information be pushed through to an operator, we need to carry on. We need to enable trigger alarm and then go through the rest of the settings to make sure that this is not just an event, but also an alarm. All right. All right, so here we can choose which operator or operators should receive the alarm. We want to pop up a window. Now, very importantly, we can also link this to a map. So whenever it comes through to an operator screen, you can see the live video or playback of that specific event, plus you can see where on the map it is. And for that, we need to enable related map and choose the map where we've plotted that resource, that camera, that alarm input, that whatever the case might be. So we need to enable related map, choose the correct map from this list, and then carry on. All right, so now we can say finish alarm or add the alarm. It's going to add it. It's happy with that. And there we go. There's an alarm. So now if the alarm gets triggered, if I go back a little bit, if this alarm gets triggered, we're going to swap over to the next screen, which will be for the operator on the control client PCs. All right, so the next screen you'll see is on that screen there. Let me just pause it right there. This is the trigger pop-up window. Remember the tick box that we ticked, trigger pop-up window. This is the pop-up window. So the operator doesn't have to have any screens specifically open. The pop-up window, if we tick the tick box in the web client, this will come up automatically. All right, it'll show us the video recordings, it'll show us maps and all those kind of things. And here's a bit of an acknowledgement. So nice and easy drop-down boxes. This is the OB entry to the system. So if the manager needs to see what happened, what kind of alarms were actioned and so forth, you can always go back into the acknowledgement screens and go find the history of these records and see what the operator did and so on. So we can abbreviate on this also a little bit later. Okay, so forwarding means that if he clicks on forward, this is typically, let's say I'm operator 1, there's operator 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever the case might be. I don't have time to action this alarm right now, maybe busy with another priority alarm. I can then forward it to somebody more suitable, either more suitable or somebody that's free at that moment to action the alarm to handle it. So that's what the forwarding function is for. So I can choose, click on forward, and then send it to another one of my colleagues that is sitting maybe next to me or whatever that has time that's free to action the alarm. All right, the alarm is then forwarded. We can also go to the alarm center. The alarm center looks like this, the alarm stack, if you will. Your alarms will be visible like this in text format, right? So I can see the alarms come through like this, and then I can also action them from there. All right, so if I choose an alarm, I will see the actual video. Now, currently we've got a whole, checkered box over here, but normally this will be your either your live video or your playback screen, and then also the map of where that alarm occurred. So where that the specific device is on a map, so we can immediately see where this is if I'm not too sure what video I'm looking at. Okay, if I want to go back into the history of alarms, we can go and search over here. Sorry, one a little bit more back. There we go. History alarm search. This is so I can go back into the full history should my user account allow me to. Otherwise, the admins can also go back from even the web client to go and search for history alarms. So just to quickly show you, search for alarms, obviously, in events as well. So here, if I click on that, I'll get you an event and alarm search, and then I can put in certain filters to filter out. So I don't have to look at all the alarms coming through. I can search for specific events or alarms if I need to check up on them. All right, so they were the same two tampering detection alarms. And again, from there, I can also go and look at the video and the map and the operator logs and so forth. All right, so that is basically how you open up your event and alarms, or you create them. All right, let's carry on. All right, so the next one is the IP speaker. How do we manage this? Now, there's a little bit of a trick involved here, but I'll show you. It's not very difficult. All right, so first of all, we need to set up the device and make sure that it can connect with HIK-Central. So we need to modify the IP address of the speaker itself, check the server IP address on the speaker to make sure that the speaker is connecting to HIK-Central. We also need to get the serial number of the speaker, which I'll show you. You don't have to go and build a three-story scaffolding to get up to the speaker. Again, there's another easier way to get the serial number of it. And then we can add the speaker to HIK-Central under resource management. And then from there, we can choose to either broadcast to a single one or many of them. And if we want a live talk through the speakers, or we want to play certain audio files. All right, so this is the main setup of the IP speaker. Let's quickly have a look at the video itself. Okay, so this is basically confirming what we just did. All right, so first of all, on the web client, again, we're on a browser here. So we're in the web client, we logged in as admin, basically, to have full rights to the system. And we need to now go and add the IP speaker or speakers to the system. Right, so for there, we need to have certain information. So before we go there, so if we want to add an IP speaker to the system, we need the IP address, the port, the serial number, as we just mentioned in the previous slide. So to get all that information, as I said, we don't have to build a scaffolding to get to the speaker itself. We've got a certain tool called Manager. That is like our SADP tool that does a search for our IP cameras and NVRs and so forth. Right, so the Manager tool is mainly for the speakers. So there we can find all online IP speakers, all right, and then get all the information from there. All right, so we found our device, and now we can go through the parameters and get certain settings and change IP addresses if we need to. All right, but here we can get all the information. There's the IP address of the speaker. Okay, now we can log into the speaker itself. All right, so under server, under the server setup, we need to put in our HIK-Central server IP address over there, and as well as the port number. All right, so these needs to correspond. So the IP address of the server itself, and then the port number we're going to communicate through, and we're going to basically copy those settings into HIK-Central as well. All right, now if we go back to the overview, we can also get the serial number. So this is important to have the serial number, because this is how HIK-Central will identify the different speakers. All right, so it's important to copy that. All right, so here in HIK-Central, we're going to put in the IP address of the speaker, the port number, which should actually be different, 8877, the serial number of it, give it a name, username and password, and then it'll connect. All right, now next, this is going a little bit fast. Next, we're going to go and set up some basic configuration settings for the speaker itself, or speakers. All right, now we can store files, the audio files, either on the local server, the local HIK-Central server, or on pStore, which is a storage device, which we're going to look at later, probably in another webinar sometime. But pStore is a storage device of HIK-Central, so we can then store these audio files in both either the local server or on pStore. So here we choose where do we want to store it, and that is basically the configuration setting of how to set up the file storage for the speaker, and knows where to get the information from. All right, then we're going to set up a broadcast group. Now, broadcast group is if we have multiple speakers, we're going to group them into a certain group, and we're going to add all the IP speakers we want to have in that group. So you can manage broadcast groups of speakers individually. All right, so currently we only have one speaker, so we're going to add that one to the broadcast group. We're going to set the volume of how loud it should be. Maybe sometimes you don't want it always to be that loud. Then the media library, we're going to add those audio files that we want to have ready for whenever we want to broadcast. So we're going to give it a name, media test, okay, in this case. So we're going to add multiple files under here, right? And then from later, we can just choose a file from a drop down to say, right, play this file now, play that file now. You can see the MP3, and I'm sure WAV files as well. WAV files and MP3s are both supported. Then under the live broadcast setting, all right, so we can choose to play the file by group. So we can do it from here. So you can say either group or area, which will be just specific speakers. Broadcast that, and then we can choose, all right, this is now broadcasting, sending that file to the speakers, and here we can see live. So remember, this is now from the web client. So I can also broadcast to the speakers from the web client. I don't just have to use the control client. So currently we can say, right, I want to speak live into a microphone and then broadcast that onto the, to the speaker or the speaker groups, or I can play an audio file, which is another option over there. Okay, audio file, and you can see there's the media test, and I can choose whichever file we want to play back and just push it through to the speaker or speakers from there. Okay, so those live broadcast audio files, I can also record and then keep them for later. Maybe I want to resend it also. All right, then we can also set up a schedule broadcast. So at certain times of day or night or whenever of the week or the month or the day, I can then broadcast, a certain file or something like that at set periods. So you can set up a schedule, broadcast time. You're going to choose a time of whenever I want to play it back, and the priority. So it needs to override a lower priority broadcast that's maybe going on. Choose the audio file to automatically send at that time. And then you can also say, right, the play mode, once only, or how long should it play it back, play it back, play it back, and then stop. Right, so it's up to you. So if it's just if it's an audio message, maybe once should be enough, or then specific duration is going to keep on repeating that for the duration that you set over here. All right, so we apply that to the speakers, and Bob's your uncle. All right, so now it should work. Right, so what we can do, if we go back to our event and alarm that we just set up on the previous video, we can now have the speaker be linked to another type of event. All right, so it's quite cool that you can link certain devices and certain things. So what we're doing now in this example is whenever a specific user logs in and we choose that specific user, we can have the IP speaker, say, welcome, Carol, in this case, or whatever you want to do. But anyway, so under any kind of event, if there's a motion detection on a camera, a line crossing, an intrusion detection, an access control event, and a vehicle event, or whatever, I can then choose that IP speaker to broadcast something for me. All right, so here we're going to choose, let me just go back a little bit in the video. Here we can choose the IP speaker, so link the speaker unit over there. as a linkage for that type of event. So currently we set it as a user login, right? We're going to choose link speaker unit from the linkage actions. And then from there, we're going to tell the speaker what to do. Whenever this user logs in, the speaker, we're going to link over here. So it'll be that one speaker that we've got currently in the system, broadcast, and then select an automatic audio file to play whenever this happens. And then obviously you can put this on a schedule, and the rest of the alarms basically set up the same way. So it's actually quite cool that you can link certain things and certain devices, certain events that happens to automatically do something for you. Now, for the speaker can also be plotted onto a map so that the operator can know exactly where on the map it is. So should I want to broadcast to the northern side of the building, then I go, oh, that's speaker group A or B or whatever you want to call it. So we need to plot these speakers onto the map, and then we can also link cameras to speakers. Anyway, so let's just quickly plot the speaker onto the map. So that's as easy as you click and drag. And then for the map monitoring side, I can then, oh, it's going a bit fast. On the map monitoring side, this is a similar screen that the control client, the operator would see. Remember, we are still in the web client, okay? But the operator will see exactly this screen that we're on now with a plotted speaker onto the map. I can click on it and I can immediately broadcast. Now, broadcast again, one in two ways, either via talking into a microphone or choosing a media file to play. There we go. And I can then start talking, say, hey, why are you jumping the fence, or whatever the case might be. All right, there's our audio file, and it can play, you know, once or twice or whatever. Okay, so now we are in the control client software. All right, so the control client software, you'll see the map shortly. The IP speaker, we've opened up the IP speaker, but we can link the speaker and the camera in the area setting in web client. In web client, we can link these two. So whenever I open up the speaker, the camera will open up together with it. Then from there, I can say, right, I want to either speak to the camera, to the speaker, or play a certain audio file, and then choose it from the list. It makes it very easy for the operator to manage this. Okay, and that is it for the IP speaker. Actually quite simple. All right, let's have a look at the next one. All right, so the next side, we've got the security control. Security control includes things like, excuse me, our alarm systems, our radar, and those kind of things. Now, there's many ways of adding these devices. Right, remember, the alarm systems will normally be off-site, or in most cases, if you are monitoring your client's alarm systems and so on, then we have two different kinds of ways to connect that alarm system to HIK-Central. All right, so first of all, the first one we're going to do is ISUP protocol. So ISUP protocol is basically a push. All right, so let me quickly draw a picture for you. All right, so if I have this, let's say that's my alarm system, and this is my HIK-Central, and the internet is in between somewhere here. So normally in HIK-Central, I would put in the IP address of the device to connect to it, right? But the ISUP protocol is different. The ISUP protocol pushes. So in this case, the alarm panel is going to connect to HIK-Central instead. All right, this is using the ISUP protocol. So I like to call it a push protocol. So the alarm panel will connect to HIK-Central and not HIK-Central to the alarm panel. That's our ISUP protocol. All right, so this is basically what we're going to cover here. So we need to configure the security control device, the alarm panel, obviously. Add the device into HIK-Central Professional, HCP. HCP is HIK-Central Professional via the ISUP protocol. Then we manage the security control, partitioning and arming and those kind of things, all right? Then we're going to do an alarm setup. So very importantly, I obviously want to get an alarm or event, some sort of trigger in my control room whenever there's an alarm trigger. So we need to set that up. How do we handle it? This is going to be the same way like we did the tampering in the previous video, and then also be able to manually arm and disarm, bypass, recover, and those kind of things in the arming control. All right, so let's quickly have a look at that video. Okay, sorry, we're going to do this one first. All right, so then the Hikvision private protocol, that is now connecting from the HIK-Central server to the alarm panel as per normal. So if your alarm panels are right on site on the same LAN, then you're going to use the normal private protocol. If the alarm panel is off-site, not on the same LAN, then you're going to use the ISUP protocol, right? But other than that, the configuration is virtually the same except for adding the device. This is the only difference. All right, the rest of the stuff is exactly the same between the two. All right, so let's quickly have a look and see. All right, so you're going to configure your alarm panel and all those kind of things. Add your detectors and your partitions and all those kind of things. So you're going to go through this setup first. And obviously with our alarm panels, we can also link video with that. So we can have, let's say, on-site cameras buffering through the panel. And whenever the panel picks up a detection through a detector or whatever, then we can push video through it as well. So if we want to use the ISUP protocol, that means that the panel is most likely off-site. It's not on the same LAN as the HIK-Central. Then you're going to use the ISUP protocol over here. You're going to go into ISUP enrollment. You enable this. Make sure it's ISUP 5 selected over there. You're going to put in the IP address of the HIK-Central server. This now needs to be the public IP address of the HIK-Central server. Plus port 7660 is the default port. So we can change this, but the default port is 7660. Just remember that if it is off-site, we're going to have to do port forwarding on the HIK-Central side to allow this port's communication through to HIK-Central. All right, so we're going to set this up, the IP address of the server itself, the port number, and then the device ID is very, very important. This needs to be a very unique number. It's normally the serial number of the device, but you can change it. You can also have the alphabet letters in there if you want to, but this needs to be unique per alarm panel, because this is the only way that HIK-Central will know the difference between 10 different panels or 20 or 100, okay, by looking at the device ID if we use the ISUP protocol, okay. So very, very important. And then that password for that ISUP login that we need to put into HIK-Central as well. So we're going to put one in here. We're going to copy this password into HIK-Central, and then they will communicate. All right, so now under HIK-Central, we're going to go into the place where we add our resources, and there we're going to add a resource, a security control device instead. Cameras, NVRs will be encoding devices, radars and alarm panels and so forth will be security control devices. So we're going to add it here, and then we're going to choose ISUP protocol, right? That went a bit fast. Let's go through that again. Okay, so here is the device ID that I need to put in. All right, so remember that ID that I was very specific on needs to be unique. The key is that ISUP password that I was talking about, and obviously give it a name. It's site A, site B, site D, whatever the case might be, but make sure you've got a proper name in there. All right, then we scroll down and then we enable the video storage. Well, video storage and can only happen on either P-Store or cloud. Remember, HIK-Central, the VMS server, cannot store any video itself. Snapshots, pictures, logs, those kind of things, audio files for the speakers, no problem. But larger files like video and so forth cannot be stored on the server itself. We need to have something else as a storage device, so either P-Store or cloud storage can be selected. So in this case, the video that's going to push through with the alarm detection, we want to store somewhere. So currently we've chosen the P-Store, which is a separate hardware device with a lot of storage in it. And then we can go and, go into the area settings. So the area settings over here, we're going to choose our alarm panel that we just imported. Click the area name, and then we're going to check the zone status. And we can also do bypasses and all those kind of things over here, right? So there's a whole lot of statuses that we can see from the system. Okay, now also adding it to a map. So we want to link the alarm panel to a map. Maybe you've got a Google map or something like that. We want to plot it onto a map somewhere, maybe the detectors and so on. And then we want to set up an event and alarm. So the event and alarm, we're going to go through to an alarm event, an alarm input, obviously a detector of some sorts. And then we're going to say, if the alarm input is triggered, which alarm input are we talking about? We want to set up an event or alarm for this. Okay, so you can choose many of them, or all of them if you want to. Link it to a map, so relate it to a map, so the map must pop up as well. We're going to choose the map that we just plotted the alarm panel onto, and Bob's your uncle. All right, so it is set up, its alarm, the alarm has been configured. All right, so there's our wireless zone. All right. Then we can also check configurations, alarm detection, partitioning, all those kind of things, right, from the HIK-Central website. So here's our partitioning, ISUP-AX is just the name that they've given to this panel, area 1, and so forth. We can check the status of the zones, bypass zones if we need to. You can see all the functionality there on top, stay arming, away arming, everything included. So check alarm notifications directly on the map. We can do it here. You can see that if there's a detection of a zone, it goes red, as we can see at the bottom there. So we can see it on the map blinking and so on, but we will also get the alarm in our alarm center. Right, from there, we can do arming control, ignore the alarm, and so on, already action it right there. Or we can go to, here's our alarm center, basically a search, window pop-up. So everything as we did with the previous alarms that we set up. Right, so here we can also go into the arming control and arm certain panels, certain zones, certain areas or partitions, if you will, from this. Doesn't have to happen from the map. So there's quite a few methods of getting to the same thing. Okay, oops, sorry, that video was not supposed to end there. Just play it back from there again. Okay, now adding it via private protocol. We need to log into the web interface of the panel itself. We need to configure the detectors and all those kind of things. So you need to make sure that all your zones and everything's already inside or configured on the panel itself. Then we're going to go again back to security control device, but instead of using ISUP protocol on top, we're going to just choose Hikvision private protocol, as you can see over here. So now we can put an address. So you can see that this method, it means that the panel needs to be on the same LAN as the HIK-Central server. All right, so then we can put in IP addresses, usernames, passwords, and that is it. Add it to a map as we did with the previous one. So the only difference really for the total configuration would be the importing of the device into HIK-Central, either through ISUP or linking it via a direct IP address. The rest of the configurations, alarm setup, notifications, arming, disarming, all those other things are exactly the same as with the ISUP protocol. So it's purely just an adding it to HIK-Central that is different between the two protocols. Once it's added, we do exactly the same thing. You can see there's the same arm, disarm, away arm, stay arm, all those kind of things right there in HIK-Central. Okay, now in control client, we're getting the alarm like we did with the previous, the ISUP protocol. You can get alarm pop-ups, you can get cameras linked to that. You can see live videos and playbacks, all those kind of things directly from there. Here's my arming control again. History alarm search. Very simple and easy. You can also export this. This is an Excel export. You can also export in PDF and CSV if you want to. All right, and that is it for the alarm panel configuration. All right, next up, we've got the radar. Now, radar is a very exciting product. I'm going to show you. We actually have 4 different options. We've got the 60 meter. Now, this is based on human detection, right? So 60 meter, we do not bring the 100 meter into South Africa. We've got a 60, 120, 500, and 1.5 kilometer. And these are all on human detection distances. Vehicles will obviously be a little bit further than that. But yeah, 60 meters, 120, 500, and 1.5 Ks. All right, so first of all, we need to obviously add the device to HIK-Central. We can add it to a map. Actually, this is not optional, right? So you need to have the map so you can set up your detection zones and so forth of the radar. There's your draw zones and need to obviously calibrate PDZs. Right, so the radar will be like a triggering device. It'll get a PDZ or multiple PDZs to then start tracking an object for you. So the radar will pick up the movement. The PDZ will give you the visuals on that. And then from there, we will obviously configure the alarm for it. And then we want to be able to check the live tracking on the map itself, which is actually quite fantastic. Right, check alarm info and history track. So we're going to search histories and so forth. And we can also manually arm and disarm. So let's say they're doing a bit of maintenance on alarm on a perimeter fence. As an example, you don't want to sit with 10,000 alarms every time that they come there, cut the grass, maintain the fence, whatever. So you can then arm and disarm it manually. All right, so let's quickly have a look. Oh, very importantly is this note over here. Normally, if we add, let's say, a camera system, a camera, an NVR, a DVR, we would use port 8000 as an adding port, right? The radar is different. The AX Pro is also different. Okay, 80, right? 80 is your adding port, but you'll see this once we go through the video. Right. Okay, so we want to add the device onto HIK-Central. You can see the device port there, 80. So the device can also be, let me just quickly go back. We're adding it as Hikvision private protocol. So we're putting an IP address over there, give it a name, a proper name, okay? Then obviously the username and password of the device itself. All right, other than that, adding methods is the same. Adding the radar to a map is virtually the same, all right? But this part here is important. We need to calibrate the map. All right, let's go a little bit back. So we need to calibrate the map so that it knows, HIK-Central knows, right, from this wall to this wall is 50 meters or whatever, so that we know that we've got a 60-meter radar imported onto the map or into HIK-Central. It knows the scale of this so that we can draw our detection zones on this map, right? So it's very, very important that you have to calibrate. You need to know distances or scale on this map so that we can calibrate the map. It's a very important step in the radar configuration. Right, input the actual distance of that line, then we can plot the radar onto the map, and then we need to start editing the okay, there's now adding the PDZ to the same map, but we need to set different zones. All right, so edit the detection area of the radar. Let's go back a little bit. Edit detection area of the radar. So this is the radar detection area. Notice, let's say it's a 60-meter radar. In this case, 150, 120 meters or whatever the case might be, so that it knows how far this extends into the map, so we can draw our detection zones and then obviously calibrate the PTZ to start following objects. All right, so we're going to tell it where this radar is aiming at, where it's looking at. And also, we don't have to look at the whole area. You can see there's a whole bunch of areas already set up. We can draw zones. We can draw lines like this, like line crossings, different directions, area zones we can set up on the radar. So it is blind for the non-marked areas. So it'll only pick up different devices and objects, different objects within those detection zones. You do not have to look at the whole area, which is very helpful, especially if it's maybe going across a road or into an area that there are normally movement. All right, let me just pause it there quickly. All right, so now what we're doing is we are calibrating, we are linking basically the PTZ to the radar. All right, so that's what we're doing now. You can see there's a whole bunch, there's 4 dots on the radar over there, and the PTZ's also got a couple of dots. There's a dot over there and so on. So we're linking by software, by graphical way, we are linking this radar to that PTZ. Now, every radar can be linked to up to 4 PTZs, or I can go the other way around. I can say up to 4 radars can link to 1 PTZ, and a combination of those, right? So you've got a lot of flexibility when it comes to the radar and PTZs. For now, we're going to do one only today. So we are linking this radar. We're going to click and drag to this PTZ's dot over there, and now via software, it is linked. Done. All right. So now it knows that it needs to trigger this PTZ whenever this radar picks up something. We still have to configure, and there we go, calibrate the PTZ. So we need to calibrate the PTZ. So you want to have one moving object only in the radar detection area. One moving object only while you're doing this. I need to be very, very clear on that. Okay. So that when you get your PTZ, to look at the device, we need to select the moving object and then get the PTZ turned left, right, up, down, and so forth to look at that particular object. All right. Okay, so currently we can see there's many moving objects, but you don't want to have that. You want to have one only. All right, for the alarm setup, it's very similar, except for we're now going to choose an alarm device, security radar, and then a region entrance. So one of those regions, one of those zones that we've drawn, as soon as this is triggered, we want it to have something happen whenever that happens, right? So we're going to choose the radar. We're going to add a linkage action to this. We're going to record a specific camera, which is obviously our PTZ camera. We're going to add it to a map. Wow, that went fast. Okay, so we're going to choose the PTZ that is linked to the radar as well. So it starts a recording and it starts panning and tilting and zooming and following. All right. And then next, we're going to make sure that the floor plan, the map is showing when we get this alarm in our control client. So that comes through as well. So we need to make sure that our map is selected. And then we save. All right. So then our alarm is set up. You can see radar 1, whatever the case might be. And in our control client software, we will now get this over here. All right. So we can see our radar, there's detection zones, a PTZ, and all this kind of things. So that we can get the alarms whenever it is the radar is triggered. So from our list, our resource list in the HIK-Central control client, we're going to call up the radar, and then obviously that is linked to a map, so we can see the map as well, and obviously the PTZ. So you can see the moving objects in the radar detection areas, and our PTZ will then start following those objects because we just calibrated the PTZ. From here, we can arm and disarm and so forth. Again, like I said, if they're doing maintenance and so forth on a fence maybe, or in a detection zone of a radar, we don't necessarily want to sit with all those triggers. So we can arm and disarm. That is if my password allows me to do that. So it depends on my account details. All right. Then from here in our alarm center, we can also see the map, the PTZ camera, and also in the alarm stack, we'll see our alarms come through. And we can also do an alarm history search for previous alarms. And then from there, you can get your videos and your maps and all those kind of things. Also, you'll see the operator actions that the operator did. If I go back a little bit. Over here, you can see who handled the alarm, alarm status, confirmed it was acknowledged this time and date, and so forth and so forth. So all the operator actions when they acknowledge the alarm. All right, so arming control again. So arming control, I can go and arm and disarm it from here from a list. I don't have to wait for an alarm to come through first. So I can arm and disarm certain radars and whatever the case might be for a certain time period, maybe for an hour or two or whatever, it depends on how long. They'll maybe be busy with the maintenance at that area. All right, so that is the radar setup. Next up, we've got the smart wall, right? So the smart wall is our video wall or smart wall. Potato, depends on who you speak to. All right, so we're going to look at the 69 series decoders and the LED screens. All right, how do we set this up? So first of all, we need to add the decoder and create the smart wall layout. Right, from there, we're going to do the screen operation. So opening up windows, roaming windows, join windows, and then we need to do live views and playbacks via the decoder, and then also alarm image display. So our alarms can automatically pop up onto the video wall once they trigger. All right, let's quickly have a look at this. All right, so we're going to add our video wall under the smart wall module. We're going to add the decoder over here. As per usual, the username and the password. All right, if we click on the settings, we can go and log into the web page of the decoder itself, but this is not always necessary. So the resolution settings that the person is currently setting now, we can actually do from HIK-Central as well. So you don't have to log in a remote config into the video wall decoder. Right, so what we're going to do under the add button, so you saw on the other side, on the right hand side over there, that's a bit far. On the smart wall side, this is now setting the layout of the screens, because HIK-Central doesn't know, are all 4 or 10 hour screens or whatever next to each other, above each other, in a square, in a rectangle, in a whatever form. So we need to tell it. And that's what we're going to do on the screen over here. Okay, so how many rows, how many columns? So we're going to put 1 row, 2 columns, something like this over here. Put pixels in there. So this is according to our LED blocks. All right, so this is if we connect it to an LED screen. All right, so we're going to click and drag our HDMI ports. You can do it in batch as well. So we've selected multiples, one side here, and click them and drag them out over both at the same time. So then we tell the right stream type settings, mainstream or substream that we want to display on the video wall. And then from our control client, if I go back a little, control client main screen, you'll see the smart wall on the right-hand side over there. Right, so from there, we can decide, right, which smart wall, because we might have multiples, which smart wall we want to display and control. This is now opening up different screen divisions on it. You can see I've got a 2-screen division. Click and drag a camera over, and then these 2 cameras will physically display on the video wall itself. You can see decoding status and so forth. If it's a PDZ, we can control the PDZ and do whatever you need to, even do playbacks on screen on the video wall itself. Okay, so we're going to split this screen configuration into even more if you want to. This is a roaming window. A roaming window means it's sort of like a loose window that can go basically anywhere. Okay, so it's very flexible again. If you want to join windows, we can make both those screens one big window if you want to. So you can open up a window with specific coordinates if you want to get into that technical detail. It's possible. You can still drag it around if you want to. All right, then we can save the views. So if I set up a certain view with tens of hundreds of cameras, whatever, I can save it. So next time I can just call up the view again, it'll call up those for me. Now, what is setting up now is a schedule setup. So whenever I want to have, in this case, these 2 cameras, this view, test view that was saved, display automatically at certain times of day, on certain days, I can go and say schedule play, and then repeat this on Mondays and Tuesdays or whatever the days might be, and set up the times and then save that. So that'll happen automatically. So this is again coming to you. Let's say you're monitoring opening and closing times of certain premises and so on, then those views can come up automatically. You can also add more groups to view. There we go, test group and so on. This is a different kind of a layout. So very, very flexible when it comes to that. All right, so that is the video wall side. And then the last part is the maintenance we're going to talk about. So maintenance side, I'm going to be fairly quick on this. We've got 2. We've got with network transmission devices. Now, this basically means our smart switches, all right? The smart switch that can actually communicate with HIK-Central. And we've got one without transmission devices, basically non-smart devices. We'll always have network switches, right? But this is with the smart switches, and the next slide will be without smart switches, right? So first of all, we need to add the network transmission devices smart switch to our web client, to our HIK-Central, display the topology, check the overview and history of devices, click the exception warnings if you get any warnings that comes with our smart switches, and we can also check for online and offline devices, specifically for an audit trail. But as I mentioned, the other one will be without network transmission devices. So it obviously switches, but without smart switches. All right, so we can't really see much on the devices itself, on the switches itself, because it's not a smart switch, but we can check which cameras are online and offline. But you'll see how smart switches actually assists in making your whole system much better. All right, so let's quickly have a look at the video. So we need to see the real-time status, history, data overview, and so on, and be able to do maintenance from there. All right, so here's our health monitoring screen. If we go back a little bit. Health monitor within HIK-Central. So under health monitoring, we can see real-time overview. So here we can see anything that's red is a problem. All right, so green, we are happy with that, but reds are a problem. So we can see, oh, 2 cameras offline and so forth, communication exceptions, there's 2 of them or whatever. So clicking on the red, whichever red part it is, will take you through to that exact problem. All right, so we clicked on the one, it shows us exactly which cameras are online and offline or whatever. And then this one is for abnormal images, images frozen maybe. We can also export this into a PDF format. There we go, for reporting purposes, frame freeze and so on. And then something happened to my video. No, this is just blank. Why is this blank? This is not supposed to happen. Let me try this again. Okay, this video is not really working. All right, so let me just quickly give you what it is, we can do. All right, so if it's a smart switch, we can add that switch via an IP address to HIK-Central, and then we can start monitoring the individual ports of the switches. We can even have HIK-Central draw us a topology of which switch is connected to which other switch via which port and what other device, camera, NVR, DVR, whatever is connected to certain other ports and so forth on the switches. We can monitor all those kind of things, including the power over Ethernet usage and all those kind of things. We can switch off power, we switch on power to the switches and remotely all from HIK-Central. All right, so we can display the topology and the connection relation. So it'll draw you a diagram automatically in HIK-Central of which switch is connected to where. All right, we can check the overview status and the device status, as I just mentioned. In the control client, we can do it under maintenance and the resource status and so on. And we can also check the exceptions and the warnings. Right, so exceptions, we can set up alarms as well for this. Under health monitoring, that's the first part of the video that you did see. The red parts are the exceptions. You can click on it to see exactly what is the problem. All right, check the online and offline duration of devices and log files of the devices. This is part of the audit trail to say, but hey, you know, this NVR tells every day at 12 o'clock and comes back online again at 12:15. There must be a problem. There's a trend, things like that. So that is what the audit trail is for. So all those kind of things, and you can determine, oh, but hold on, there's a high power device that switches on every time the NVR goes into protection mode, it dips, the power dips to it or whatever, and then it reboots, something like that. Anyway, trends like that. So the smart switches makes it much easier to do monitoring and maintenance of the devices. All right, so that is basically it from my side. Any questions? I don't see any questions in the Q&As. Do you guys have any questions about today's module? All right, I don't see anything coming up. Eben, are you there?
Yes, I am. Yes. I also don't see anything from my side.
Okay, fantastic. I think either I've spoken too much or
no.
Nobody's really interested.
I know it was a lot of good information and a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of the guys have learned today. I myself have picked up on quite a few extra little tips there, so really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you very much for assisting us.
It's a pleasure.
There we go. So if there's no other further questions, please guys, remember tomorrow we've got another webinar. It will be for our tandem view. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys again. I'll be hosting that one tomorrow, and enjoy the rest of the day.
All right. Thank you guys. Goodbye.
All right. Thank you.